Welcome back to Boob Tube Buddies, and thanks for joining us as we begin our series on the Netflix original, The Get Down. We are so excited to talk about The Get Down today, but before we get started and get down with our review, come on, right? Come on,
that was the literal worst.
All right, fair enough. All right, okay. My name is Nathan Graves, guys. You can follow me on Twitter at RedGraveTV. And Dan, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
No, not after your intro. But
Sounds
you know
good.
what? I'm going to do it anyway. Hey, guys, this is Dan Barron. You can follow me on Twitter at DanTheManAsher. You won't see much, but you can still follow me. I need friends.
You're not on Twitter? You don't do much on Twitter?
You know, not much. I occasionally go on and browse, or I'll shoot a tweet at a celebrity and hope that they shoot back, but they don't.
You know, I was recommended a few Twitter feeds the other day. The one that interested me the most, though, was it was a parody North Korea Twitter feed.
Yes, I think, did Brett recommend this to you?
Brett, yes, our friend Brett recommended this Twitter feed. And yeah, it's perfect. It basically takes every headline, every American news headline, and reinterprets it as if the North Korean press were reporting it.
It's a wonderful Twitter, and if I remembered it offhand, I would just say it.
It's a bunch of letters. It's the Democratic Republic of North. It's like DRPNK, I think. DPRNK, the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea. DPRNK.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering correctly off the top of my head. Anyways, we don't support that Twitter account. We are not advertised by them.
But we do support Boob Tube Buddies, and you can support us. Please subscribe to us on whatever manner of which you listen to podcasts, and give us a review. It's the best way that you can help the show, help us flourish, help us find our wings.
Absolutely. Yes, we need our wings, Dan. We've yet to actually come into our own. We're a prepubescent podcast, if you will.
We are but mere fledglings in the sky of life.
All right. Well, Dan, I'm really, really excited today because this is our first episode talking about The Get Down.
Yeah, and can I just say, you know what? I'm just going to pull this cat out of the bag. Not Australia.
It's not Australia. That's a good way of starting. Not Australia. Now, then again, in order for that to make sense, you had to have hated Australia to understand what Dan is saying, because what he's saying is it's not as bad as Australia. Am I interpreting that right?
Yeah, it's not as bad as Baz Luhrmann's Australia. I am not referring to the country/continent of Australia, which I'm sure is filled with marvelous people who I hope will follow us.
Not after that comment, they won't. Do you think Australia, the movie, is hailed in the continent?
I doubt it.
I really do too. I really don't. I don't think that it speaks too highly. I don't know. But what's good about The Get Down is it's certainly very, 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 very different than Australia. And while it held elements, I think, of Baz Luhrmann's other productions, it's pretty unique for old Baz Luhrmann.
I'm going to be honest. So beyond immensely enjoying the episode, I have never seen anything like that before. Now, I'll warn you, if you haven't listened yet, obviously, pause this. What's wrong with you? We're going to be spoiling a lot of things. But if you haven't watched it yet, be prepared to strap in. The first episode is, over an hour and a half long. It is absolutely, the first episode could very well be a movie on its own.
It could. And they did that very much on purpose, right? Like the feature length pilot, just to get everything started. Because what we're really looking at here is, a love story of these two characters, and there's a lot more going on we're going to dive into, but I think that starting it out right, by giving you this epic, long introduction to these characters, there are good things and bad things to that, but for me, it worked pretty well, and I started the first episode at midnight, and I was like, well, I'll start it tonight, maybe I'll get 45 minutes in, like a normal goddamn TV show, but 1:30 a.m., and I was like, I almost want to press play on the second episode.
Yeah, so I did the same thing, or I thought like, I got to watch this first episode. I really need to, start taking notes. I got to prepare. And I thought, I'm going to watch the first half.
Yeah.
I'll pause it because I got some chores to do. I got some wedding planning to do. I've got, Nathan, I'm a busy man.
Yeah, you are. I'm aware.
I'm a busy man.
You're constantly telling me.
Constantly busy, which is probably just an excuse because I just don't like doing things. But I was like, I'm going to watch the first episode and get some things done, or half the first episode.
Sure.
And I couldn't pause it. I couldn't. No. I wanted to see it through.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I figure we'll do, let's kick it off with a 5 to 10 minute recap of the episode, and if this gets us going on some good discussion, then so be it. But let's kind of dive into it, because there's a lot going on in this episode, as far as character introductions, as far as stylistic introductions as well. Because really, what it's trying to do is create a new, not a new style, but it's trying to do something that you haven't really seen on television.
Well, I was trying to think about it the other day. The episode, the style, the quality, it is a mashup of like two of the most popular cult themes in cinema in the late 70s, early 80s. So very much it felt like the combination of blaxploitation films,
sure, and
kung fu films.
Yeah.
The kung fu was a little bit heavy-handed. Like, you could tell they were going for it.
It was obvious. They literally, one of the characters has a Bruce Lee belt buckle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, really, if that didn't give it away, how about his name?
Right. Well, Shaolin Fantastic.
Shaolin Fantastic. But so it very much, it felt like I was almost back in a film class,
sure.
Trying to decipher styles and figuring out what
were the influences.
Yeah.
Was it Western? Was it Kung Fu? And so much of the, Tarantino's influence on Kung Fu, all that sort of stuff. You're in film class, you're sitting there, you're watching, going, what did this filmmaker, where did they draw from? And you sort of feel that while you're watching The Get Down. I
felt it the whole way through. I genuinely, I was enamored. I was enamored with the amazing, combination they pulled off.
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing: is this is sort of a continuation in this sort of auteuristic view on television, which says you can have a showrunner who brings their vision to TV. And you feel, because outside of just looking at where were their influences, you also look at where did Baz Luhrmann, the director, influence this TV show? Does it feel like his other works, even though he's never done a TV show? And I would say absolutely throughout this, you're feeling quite a bit of what made Moulin Rouge of what made Romeo and Juliet, or Romeo plus Juliet, however you're supposed to pronounce that damn movie's name. But what made that movie, and he brought a lot of himself, I think, to this TV show. So, let's kick it off. Let's dive in a little bit to the episode itself. So, what's interesting is that we don't open in 1977. Now, the show itself is based in 1977, around the emergence of the hip hop scene in the Bronx, New York, right?
Yeah, and just a quick clarifier though to that point. While it is definitely set around that, and we know that from watching the trailers, that is not something that's obvious until we get to the end.
Right.
This very much, for the first, I'd say 2/3, feels like it's about disco.
It does, doesn't it? It very much does. But the parallel they draw there is very interesting. And the fact that disco itself was so vital and so constructive to the emergence of the hip-hop scene, it pays a lot of homage to that. And it doesn't want you to look back on disco as we do on the 70s, right? You look back at the 70s and the disco scene, you're picturing, bell bottoms, you're picturing afros, you're picturing very specific images that, though I think we've caricatured them almost, right?
Sure.
And this takes a real look at that and says, no, this was very important back then. And in fact, not just important back then, it was important to the music scene as it is now. We wouldn't have Marshall Mathers, right? We wouldn't have these modern day hip hop artists if the disco scene in the late 70s didn't exist.
Yeah, what would we do without Drake, guys?
I don't know what I would do without Drake.
Think about that. The Degrassi would have been really boring. That's what he did, right? That was all he did?
That was it. And disco informed Degrassi.
Yeah.
Good.
Well,
Good conclusion.
Start with D's.
We have our podcast thesis statement.
Yep. Actually, I think we could just wrap it up right there.
Done, guys. Sorry.
But anyway, sorry.
Yeah,
go on.
You're good. But the episode itself doesn't actually begin in 1977. We kick it off really, really quickly in 1996. And we're flashing forward, or what, we don't know yet is flashing forward, but we're flashing forward to a hip-hop concert in Madison Square Garden in New York, and we're introducing our main character here.
Sorry, I'm going to go ahead and stop you right there. I know you say we don't know we're flashing forward.
Yeah, we do.
It's so, A, blatantly obvious from the trailers what you know, but B, blatantly obvious from the fact that he is rapping about, his childhood.
That's true.
And, like, you know,
I think the first words he says is 1977.
Yeah, like,
the Bronx.
you know we're going back. Like, this is not a
He's
this
our
is not a
Shakespearean
question.
chorus, almost, I think. And on top of all of this, the character playing, by the way, the character introduction we're getting here, it's Ezekiel, it's Zeke, who will later be known as Books.
Yep.
It's the name of the character. Played by, older Zeke, played by...
Go ahead.
David Diggs.
David Diggs.
Oh my
Tony
God.
Award winner.
Yes.
David Diggs. It's very important.
I was so excited to see. That's so cool. I love David Diggs. For those of you who don't know, has been in multiple productions and things before. But the thing that I think Dan and I know him from and reference specifically is from Hamilton. He's our Lafayette. He's our Jefferson.
Although not him rapping.
No, it doesn't sound like him rapping. I know
it's not him. I've already looked it up.
Oh, you have looked it up. Oh, very interesting.
It's on the soundtrack. It is not him. Which, what a waste.
Yeah.
You get David Diggs. That's not just a face. I'm just going to say that.
And yet, when we hear Zeke rapping later, if you were to try to convince me that later his voice turned into David Diggs, I would understand that, because David Diggs has this very high, like, high-pitched, I'm not even going to try to do an impersonation, a high-pitched rap hip-hop voice. And
Are you
Zeke
kidding me?
does
Because, Zeke as a child, like, that voice.
He's got this deep voice, yo.
That's your impersonation?
My Zeke impersonation? Yeah.
Pretty solid. Can you give me another one?
Hey, yo, I'm Zeke. And I'm not going to keep doing this because I feel like I'm offending everybody who holds some emotional connection to this TV show.
Let me ask you, just do one more part. Can you tell me about your heartbreaking in Zeke's voice?
My heartbreaking. I was gonna do Marlene, my butterscotch queen.
I mean, that's good too, but can you just say, like, it feels like my heart is
feels like my heart is breaking. When you sing, it's like how Red Velvet feel.
That's
like
actually a great line. I love that line.
It's so good. So, and actually, I guess we should get into that because we are just completely botching this character introduction. Zeke rapping 1996 throws it back to 1977. We see him getting ready for his day and writing a poem called Butterscotch Queen about a girl named Marlene, who he has predicted would be his wife one day. And I think we immediately get the introduction that this is a love story.
Yeah. It's very much it's a Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah,
plus Juliet.
Romeo plus Juliet. The other interesting thing, and looking at the episode now, I believe this episode is meant to take place over 24 hours. It's a day. So we start with Zeke getting ready for his day. In fact, he's burning the eggs. And by the end of this episode...
Yeah, oh my God, you're absolutely right. It was just supposed to take place over 24 hours, and it felt like it was 24 hours worth of episode.
The sun is rising, and the last shot, the sun is rising as they watch the train go by there at the end.
Beautiful shot, by the way.
It's beautiful, and it's so stylized. And even our introduction of the Bronx, New York, reminds me of the Moulin Rouge introduction of Paris. It's animated...
There's a singing moon.
Maybe not that stylized in storybook, but still pretty stylized. It's animated. It's flowing. You're moving all around the city the same way that Baz Luhrmann does with most of his introductions, aside from Australia.
Yeah, that's a whole continent. How are you going to zip around that?
You can't. Sorry. Yeah, no. So that's what we get. We start with Zeke. Zeke is our main guy, right? Zeke is he's our wordsmith, and he's in love with Marlene. And then we go through this series of character introductions. And so, Dan, who are our main players in the Get Down?
Well, so I'm going to obviously save the best for last, but I'd say Marlene, obviously important. Mm-hmm. But the second most important male character would definitely seem like it's becoming Shaolin Fantastic, who I love because in the introduction of it, this is where you really get that kung fu feeling. Yeah. Like it's this mythical monk on a mountain style like character that is this graffiti artist that the boys all kind of look up to. Yep. And the red pumas. Oh, those spotless red
always
pumas.
Clean, always spotless red pumas.
But so I'd say Shaolin Fantastic for sure. Then you have the brothers with some of the worst names: Boo, Ra Ra, and then Marcus, or as they call him, Dizzy. I just want to know how he won the lottery of being Marcus while his kid brothers were Ra Ra and Boo. But Marcus, Dizzy, played by Jaden Smith, the Karate Kid himself.
Which appropriately, I think the first thing his friends say, the Karate Kid himself. I'm sorry, I'm going to go back and just slam you there for a second. I didn't even catch that. But appropriately, when they introduce Jaden Smith and his friends first see him, I think what they say to his brother is just like, "Man, your brother is weird." You know,
Yeah.
like the character of Jaden Smith is introduced as just being sort of a weird dude. And yeah, you know, if there's another Twitter account I want to recommend, it would be Jaden Smith's Twitter account. Go check that out. If you've never read Jaden Smith's tweets, they are Shaolin fantastic.
They are Shaolin fantastic.
It's amazing.
You know, I'd say that's our main cast right there.
Yeah.
And it very much feels by the end of the episode that these are the boys we're following. This is the journey that we're going to follow. Again, not to take away from Marlene, because I know that obviously she's going to be important. Or Mylene. Sorry, not Marlene. Mylene.
Have I been saying Marlene?
I don't know.
Mylene, my butterscotch queen, right?
Hey, if you guys listen to this up to now and we've been saying Marlene the whole time, we totally meant to say Mylene.
We did. In fact, this has all been a bit.
Yeah, like you fell for it, you dumbasses.
But Mylene, she's right away. I think the vibe they want to give off to her, she wants to be a singer.
Yeah, she wants to be a star.
She wants to be a star in the hot world of disco in the late '70s in the Bronx.
I get it. If I had a time machine, that would be my number one goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually know my number one goal is I'd like to be like my personal favorite episode or character from the episode, DJ Malibu. That's who I'd want to be. I adore DJ Malibu, but I'm gonna hold off any conversation about what is it? Was it El Inferno or La Inferno?
Les Inferno.
Les Inferno. I'm gonna hold off all conversation about Les Inferno for a bit because I have so much to talk about in there.
All right,
that
I'm
right
excited.
there to me was the
Les
most
Inferno scene.
Baz Luhrmann scene of the whole movie.
I'm seeing what you're saying already.
We'll get there.
Yeah. So right away, Mylene, right? She's a singer. She's standing up on that stage. Zeke is playing piano for her, and he's got this look in his eyes like she's the one I want to marry, right? So this girl that he's referencing in the beginning has got to be Mylene. And she's singing a song by the fictional Misty Holloway.
Yeah. Which,
right?
by the way, it actually took me a moment to realize it wasn't a real person because, like, I heard the name. I was like, yeah, I feel like I know that name. Yeah. It was like the perfect, like, non-existent name.
Yes.
It's
perfect. And they reference it so casually throughout the episode. You know, later Zeke says to Shaolin, man, would you really like Misty Holloway that much? You know, like they're just so referencing her name so often. I'm like, this is a real person, right? But no, she's there to represent the Donna Summers. She's there to represent the disco stars of the 70s. And she's someone that they were able to write songs to represent a disco artist that didn't actually exist, and also without having to pay royalties.
I was going to say they didn't want to pay more royalties. They already
Then
hit
they already
$9 million an episode.
Oh my God, that's just too much. And yet you watch it and you go, okay, I see where it went.
I'm going to be honest. I see like $5 million of where it went. $4 million felt a little squandered. Like, it's not like they had like big name actors all over the place where I'm like, yeah, that eats up that payroll.
All I mean is royalties. That's it. That's literally when I think $9 million, I think music royalties. It has to be music royalties. So you wanna talk about this for a second?
Let's do it.
So all right. So each episode of The Get Down, $9 million average. I think it was $120 million production total for the whole for the whole 12 episodes. So we're, or just under 120 million. So almost $10 million an episode. That's an insane amount of money to spend on a TV show. And it's Netflix's most expensive TV show. Mm-hmm. Their second most expensive was Marcos. That up to this point has been their most expensive. But that has huge set pieces. This, for the most part, is spending its money, one, on source music.
Yep.
On music royalties, and two, on just a lengthy production that lasted far longer than it should have.
Yeah, paying people more money than they needed to because they kept them too long.
Yeah. I mean, we're not even, this is Netflix's first time doing this, but the episodes on Netflix are labeled, instead of S1E1, like they would be, Season 1, Episode 1, they're labeled P1E1, We're in part 1 of season 1, episode 1. That's technically what we're reviewing today, because they don't intend to release part 2 of season 1, which will in total be 12 episodes, until next year.
Yeah. And that's mind-blowing. I mean, don't get me wrong. Sure, the format can change. Netflix, you control whatever you want. But the idea that that's how huge this is.
Yeah.
Like, there's something about that is absolutely mind-boggling. A piece, though, I would like to say. There's a piece that I believe you forgot of where that money goes.
Yep.
And I think it's the same thing that Stranger Things had to deal with. The set design. They had to get a lot of stylized product. They had to make sure they had all... And it's not just for a, hour and a half, 2-hour movie.
True.
It's for 6.5 hours. So
Yeah.
you have to have this stuff ready. Like the actual... what's the position? The person who's in charge of the props. I forgot.
Film student here blanking.
Yeah, important guy on the movie. He's the real best boy. But that alone had to cost them a ton of money, because it felt like a slice of time. It didn't feel like they were trying.
Costumes are amazing, especially in the Les Inferno scene, which we'll get to. The costumes are perfect. And then you talk about these stylized version of these disco costumes that we wear. You can go to Party City right now and buy a disco costume, and it's completely cartoon, right?
Accurate.
Yes, so accurate. What they got for this show is just so picture perfect. Even our I wish I forgot. I wish I remembered Jimmy Smith's character's name, but like the suit that he wears, like the politicians wear.
Francisco is. I forgot his name. Francisco. He has a nickname. He goes by Poppy. Is it Poppy?
I think no. Poppy is Marlene's dad.
Yeah.
I think he just goes by Cisco, or at least I remember him being called Cisco at one point. But I mean, his suit is it's so 70s. It's so perfect. It doesn't look like something I can go to the store right now and just pick up. And yeah, I guess you're right. Like a lot of money had to be spent on that. Had to be spent on cars. They also moved the production from LA to New York for authenticity. They literally, that's how they lost their first showrunner. This show has had 2 showrunners, and technically right now, I think is working with like half a showrunner. It's working with Baz Luhrmann and one other guy. Nas, right. It has lost 2. One, because they moved from LA to New York, and the first showrunner didn't want to follow the production that direction. 2, just creative differences. The most overused excuse in film production history, but creative differences, the reason they split. But regardless, you can't get rid of 2 showrunners like that and expect a smooth production to come out on the other end. But what I saw was, I think worth the effort, whether it was worth the money.
Sure, whether they get their payoff. I actually, my favorite though, I was trying to look up things for today, just some different things to talk about. Forbes released an article. The exact words, was the Get Down worth $120 million for Netflix? $120 million. The other one, and this is AMP, this is, sure. New Netflix series, The Get Down, is a lavishly designed mess.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And so that's the thing to keep in mind. And it's, if I can help you, the viewer, keep any piece in mind, while you're watching this, please lose yourself in the story, lose yourself in this music and this well-crafted, this machine, but it's so much more interesting if you also peek behind that curtain. We're talking a bit about the production woes, and I'm sure we'll have more stories to share as we go on. But keep those in mind while you're watching it as well, because it really shows you, especially if you appreciate it like I do and like Nathan does, it really shows you how this lump of coal became a diamond.
Yeah.
And that's a huge, despite any woes, despite the financial burden, despite anything else, that is a larger testament than most movies can ask for.
Yep. And I don't know if we'll move on to see a season 2. It's possible. Right now it hasn't been confirmed. But I agree. I think that when all 12 episodes finally do roll out, I think Netflix has something on their hands that at least they can say that they're proud that they invested in. But seeing behind the curtain a little bit, seeing how it was made informs, I think, a little bit of that appreciation for it. The other thing is, I've read some reviews that are talking about how they don't like it specifically because it's just something else. It's another nail in the coffin of they don't like Baz Luhrmann. If you're already going in saying that you don't like Baz Luhrmann's style, you're not going to like The Get Down. You're just not. So don't go in expecting this to change your mind.
I do that same thing, though, every time with the Tarantino movies. Every time. Every single time.
That's a whole new podcast, Dan.
That's a different one. We'll get there. Sorry if I offended any fans of Tarantino. Not a huge fan myself, but it's the same thing with Baz Luhrmann. Yeah. It's the same thing with any director.
Yeah.
You are free to disagree with their vision. You're free to disagree with what they put out, but you always have to remember that art is subjective. Yep. Unfortunately, the art is 100% in your hands, so it's your interpretation. It's yours to dictate. And in this very case, if you don't like Baz Luhrmann, you're not going to like this because it feels like Baz Luhrmann.
And personally, I like that a lot. And I like to see his vision come across in this. And I know we're going to get a lot of different hands. He's not the only person involved. He was more involved than he wanted to be. In fact, he kind of wanted to consider himself the uncle to this project, he said, as opposed to the father of this project, right? Mm-hmm. And yet he's very much been the father of this project more than anything just because they needed him to. The showrunners kept leaving. And so his hands have been all throughout this. And he directed 2 of the episodes of the 6. You've got some other directors who contributed to the others, but his mark is all over the place. The other thing I'm reading is that people expected Netflix is advertising it as a show about the birth of hip hop, and we're in that era, and we tackle that subject. But if you know Baz, he's not going to be content to stick to that. What we're telling is a love story and a character development story, and amidst it, basically the setting is the Bronx in '77 at the emergence of the hip hop scene.
The East Coast hip hop scene.
The East Coast hip hop scene, which is made very clear. But so it's not going to be, if you're looking for a documentary about the birth of hip hop, it's not going to be that. It's going to be a love story. And my favorite scene, I think, that both balances this story is about characters and people, and this story is about hip-hop, is the scene, and it's actually one of the next scenes, it's the scene where Zeke reads his poem.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's incredible. Zeke has written a poem which has won the best poem in his class, and he refuses to read it. But after class, his teacher confronts him a little bit and, asks him to prove that he really wrote it, which then he recites the poem without reading. And if you're listening, not only is this about the struggle of 1970s New York, financially unstable, violence in the streets, all that. It is written in meter. It is written in rhyme. It is beautiful, and it is essentially an early work of hip-hop. Yeah. And you balance this emergence of, oh my gosh, I can feel that happening. I can feel the hip-hop building in what he's saying and what he's reading and writing in the poetry. And then also that this person has been through a lot. This is a kid in the Bronx, and his parents are dead. And, the violence that he's seen is absolutely unfair. So you've got character and you've got hip-hop. And I love the way the show balances those two.
Yeah, and it's to the point you made earlier. This is a story about people. Mm-hmm. It's not a story about hip-hop. This is a story where hip-hop is born through almost a suffering, through a tragedy, almost inadvertently.
Yep.
And you get that taste of it. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but you definitely get that taste of it towards the end of the episode of how much more hip-hop can be than what it is now, and it's nothing now. Yeah. Like at that point in time, it's nothing.
Yeah. So we got Mylene, right? She wants to be a singer. And her big plan is that she's going to record a record, which she records with Zeke in her introductory scene. She's going to record this tape. She's going to get it to, what's the DJ's name?
That is DJ Malibu.
She's going to get it to DJ Malibu tonight at Les
DJ
Inferno.
Malibu.
At DJ Malibu Twitter. But she's going to get this tape to DJ Malibu. She's going to go to Les Inferno tonight. She's going to stay over with her friend. They're going to sneak out. They're going to go to Les Inferno. She's going to get this tape to him. She's going to become a star. And Zeke doesn't like that, because he's in love with her, and he wants sort of him to be enough. He sees different potential in her.
Well, and beyond that, his friends kind of suck.
Yeah.
And they're all like, "Oh, she's going to Les Inferno? Like, she's gonna have to sleep with somebody. Like that's that's how you get it done." And of course, as a young star-crossed lover, much like Romeo and Romeo plus Juliet, he can't quite handle the passion he feels.
Yeah.
For Mylene.
Now her friends are telling her the same thing essentially, though, that she's gonna have to sleep with somebody.
Oh, of course, that's how the industry works, Nathan. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it.
Yeah. No, she more than likely is, and later it's offered to her.
Yeah.
But she wants to go to this club, and what happens when her father essentially finds out that she's been, singing non-gospel music,
Devil music.
She's been singing devil music in the church. He tells her not to go, and oh my gosh, if the casting on the father isn't perfect,
Right?
it's so good. So we're looking at Gus Fring from Breaking Bad, and forgive me if I don't remember it off the top of my head. I'm going to come to it in a moment. What's his name? Oh gosh, I wish I knew. Gus Fring. So plays Gus in Breaking Bad, and you traditionally know as this evil bad kingpin.
Yeah.
Right? He's this kingpin, and in this, he's the overly religious. I'll say overly religious. He's the evangelical pastor father who is, strict. He is judgmental of his daughter. He wants to keep her from harm, and this showcases itself again and again and again. And he stops her essentially from going to the club.
By the way, it was Giancarlo Esposito.
Thank you so much, Giancarlo Esposito. Yes, who's playing he's her family's Hispanic. He's the Hispanic father who's overly demanding, and essentially tells her not to go to this club. To which she then later is going to have to sneak out of her parents' house, and she does wind up doing that. And every time I'm like, I think she's taking too many risks around her father, who is proving himself to be a very, very authoritative figure in her life.
Authoritative and a little bit religiously unhinged.
Yeah, maybe so.
know?
Yeah, to the point where he gets violent, right? Which doesn't seem logical, but he's overly religious and winds up getting violent at his daughter. I don't think it's his wife at this point.
No, but his angel, his daughter.
His angel, right. And yet Mylene just keeps doing whatever she wants.
Well, she's probably lived with it her whole life. There's probably not as much fear from that as you or I would have if we were going to be marrying her and we come home and meet him.
I'm terrified.
Of course you should be. That would be a terrifying in-law to have. But for her, this is her dad. Yeah. So in that same hand where we've seen him be terrifying, she's probably seen the sweet, gentle side. She's probably learned how to get around it. She's probably tempted fate a few times and survived. So she's bold, and she has a dream, Nathan, and that's the main part of the story. Is she has a dream and she just wants to follow it.
Yeah. And so I love that casting on Giancarlo Esposito. My favorite casting, though, in the whole show has to be, for me, Jimmy Smits as her uncle Francisco.
Yeah,
we sort of briefly mentioned earlier, but Jimmy Smits, I've seen. What have I seen him in? Star Wars, Dexter.
I mean, really, name something Jimmy Smits hasn't been in. I feel like he's one of those actors I see everywhere.
Yeah, like character actor almost, never the main role. But his role in this is so perfect. He's not a politician, right? But he's
isn't he a community organizer? Isn't that the term for it?
Yes, and the mayor and the mayor's competition are basically trying to get him in their pocket, and he's basically floating on the cloud of whoever's going to give him most. But he's this very Hispanic community organizer who wants to get his way, basically leading his office like he's a crime lord, essentially. And
he is. Let's not sugarcoat that. He absolutely is.
That's true. And so he takes his guys out into the realm or into the turf of the what's the name of the gang?
Oh my God, I forgot. I wrote that down too. And hold on.
So there's a notorious vicious gang in the Get Down who everyone's like, stay away from their area. You know, Shaolin Fantastic painted this amazing work of graffiti in their area, but you can't go see it because it's too dangerous to go there.
Yeah.
It's the, oh gosh.
Savage Warlords.
I was going to say, it's the adjective noun. That's as much as I knew of it.
That's really good. That would have definitely given it away.
Yeah.
Hey guys, beware my English lit gang, the adjective noun. We'll whip some pros out of you.
But the Francisco takes his crew out there, essentially tells the Savage Warlords to get lost, and they seem to be a little bit afraid of him, which we find out a little bit. I think I have some suspicions about why they might be a little bit afraid of him.
I think we all do. But, you know, interestingly enough, though, that's actually probably one of my favorite little bits is the Savage Warlords. You know, that first scene where we see them, they seem so kind of neutered and toothless. Like, they're obviously tough. Mm-hmm. But they don't seem like the scariest gang around. It kind of seems a little ragtag.
Yeah, young.
Later,
even. Lots of kids. The Savage Warlords Junior or whatever.
Yeah. But later on, that is an actual gang. That is.
Yep.
They are to be. I understand why there was trepidation and fear.
One of the most representative scenes of New York in that time period is when Francisco points out a burning building. And says that at this point in time, and this point in the economy of the Bronx and New York, landlords are literally paying gangs like the Savage Warlords to burn down buildings to collect the insurance money. So this sort of thing is happening, and you know, his character, although he seems to be the person who's trying to fix it, I think also is a bit of the person who's benefiting from those sorts of activities.
I don't know if he is.
Yeah?
So I more so got the feeling that he genuinely wants it to stop.
Okay.
But I get the feeling he wants it to stop because he wants control of the area.
Yeah. So it's almost a selflessness.
Yeah, because let's be selflessness.
You know,
hashtag. There you go.
At selfish selflessness.
Synonymous antithesis. The idea, though, of people burning their buildings for insurance doesn't necessarily mean that their land is forfeit.
Right.
But I think he does have a better vision for the Bronx.
Yeah.
But it's also, I mean, how many times have we seen this in stories where how dirty are you willing to make your hands to clean things up?
Right. So you've got him, and that's sort of his character introduction. He is Mylene's uncle. And so that's sort of his character, and he'll come into play a little bit later, closer towards the end of the episode. And then I think the other major character to talk about is Shaolin Fantastic, who you mentioned earlier.
Absolutely, Shaolin Fantastic.
It's amazing.
I think possibly my favorite character in the episode, besides DJ Malibu, at DJ Malibu.
So Shaolin is a graffiti artist, a hailed graffiti artist who supposedly no one has ever seen. You know, he's got these spotless red Pumas that he wears, but he'll show up. He's the Banksy of the 70s Bronx, right?
Yeah.
I think that's who Shaolin is meant to be, with a kung fu vibe. So every time you see him, he's either kicking or moving or, you know, running too fast for you to even be able to see him.
Or jumping rooftop to rooftop.
It's very, for you know, like you mentioned the kung fu elements, it's also very... the spectacular scene of Moulin Rouge, where they're trying to, if you've ever seen Moulin Rouge, they're singing a song where they're trying to convince their funder to fund a musical. And it's very like, everyone's moving too fast to actually see.
That is the exact noise.
That's the sound effect.
That's the sound effect.
That's the best way I could describe the movement, that everyone's moving too fast for anybody to see. And Shaolin is very much that. I'm jumping from building to building, and you can't even see him. You don't catch his face. And he has painted a masterpiece in Savage Warlords territory. But his boss, essentially, is a character introduction that's going to become very, very, very important. But essentially, his boss, his Grandmaster, if you will, has tasked him with getting a record of which there are only one of 50. And this quest he sends him on to get the Pacusa remix.
The Pacusa remix.
The Pacusa remix. This quest is going to become one of the biggest sequences of the whole show, or of the whole episode.
Of that episode. Also, I like that you called him his boss and then his master. That that was like the Pai Mei. Like they did not even try to hide that it was like supposed to be a man like speaking to his like kung fu master, to his his sensei.
He literally says grasshopper,
Yeah.
and we'll go ahead and spoil this now because they even say it there. But that character, his boss, is DJ Grandmaster Flash.
Yep.
1976, he emerged on the scene, birth of hip hop, creator of what's the theory? Basically, advent of the two turntable DJ style was Grandmaster Flash, and they're going to talk a little bit about that later when they actually get to the get down. So I won't spoil that yet, but yeah. So he sends him off to get the Pakusa. Meanwhile, Zeke wants to get.
Hold on. Sends him off to get the Pakusa and find his wordsmith.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's almost this legend, isn't it? It's almost this very like mythical, like it's a prophecy. You must find the Pakusa and your wordsmith, and then return to me, before the sun has set. It's very, very prophecy legend, and it's the vibe they want to give to it with this sort of kung fu vibe. And who else is trying to get the Pakusa record? 1 in 50, they're trying to get. But Zeke is trying to get this because he knows this is a song that Mylene will love. He wants to get the Pakusa. He wants to play it at Les Inferno that evening.
Yeah, he wants to win her over with the song with the rare remix that she loves.
Yes, exactly. And
great gift, by the way. Smart move.
Yeah. And the Pakusa remix is a Misty Holloway remix, which we've already talked about, which is a fictional artist.
Yeah, but she's not real, guys. Don't look up her discography.
But it's meant to represent this like very rare record, and these happened. These rare prints that DJs just desired, because essentially, if you're going to DJ the way Grandmaster Flash DJs, you need 2 copies of a record, and for him to go get a Pakusa, that has to be the second Pakusa that Grandmaster Flash has in order to perform the way he's going to perform later that night.
Yeah, and you got to remember, this is. I mean, obviously, I'm saying this as if anyone here will not remember. This is before the digital age. This is not a time where this was easily accessible. If it was printed 50, like if they pressed 50 copies of that record, there's only 50 out there, and you don't know where they could go.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And so for Shaolin to have to go get a second copy of that record, or a copy of that record at all, it's incredible. And so 3 parties show up at a record store at one time. You got Zeke, you got the Savage Warlords, and you got Shaolin. And they steal the record, and thus begins a chase sequence whereby, just watch it. I'm not going to try to describe a chase sequence, but whereby at the
please
end
go
of it,
shot by shot.
Yeah, I will. But Zeke winds up walking away with the record, much to Shaolin's chagrin, as he almost kills himself.
Yeah, almost kills himself for this record, which was actually one of the only points of the episode that I actually kind of disliked.
Yeah.
Because once we found out more about Grandmaster Flash and what he was working on and why he needed it, it was that thing where I was just like, you're gonna die for that? Like,
yeah.
It'd be one thing if we found out oh no, this one specific mix was going to stop a nuke that that Nixon had put into play before he was impeached and resigned. We need the Pakusa remix to stop the nuke. No, this is, hey, I really need a second copy for my other turntable. Thanks, kid.
And literally, I think you're right, because later he tries to stop Zeke from keeping it really intensely. Basically almost threatening to kill Zeke for this record.
Yeah.
So we're at that point. They get to Les Inferno that night. Zeke still has the record. They go to Les Inferno. And Dan, I'll let you talk us through what essentially happens at Les Inferno, because I want to talk about this scene and how it sort of speaks to the style of the show as a whole.
Well, I'm going to start by rebranding it.
Okay.
It's no longer Les Inferno. It is less blatant with symbolism. It is, and I cannot emphasize it enough. So, Les Inferno, hell.
Right, yes.
Okay, got it. You got Cadillac, who I know we haven't talked about yet, but is clearly the son of a big head of a crime family.
A queen pin.
A queen pin, I think it's just a queen.
She calls herself the queen pin.
No,
She does. She says the queen. I want to be the queen.
All right,
pin.
so a queen pin of a crime family. So you got Cadillac, whose song where he's really like introduced, or rather his nefariousness is kind of introduced, is "The Devil's Gun." On top of that, you've got this blatant Misty Holloway dance scene where it is very much the Romeo plus Juliet, Moulin Rouge, just innocent love story where Zeke is just he's very innocent, and then that's been emphasized through the whole story. He's a very innocent. He's seen a lot, but he's an innocent soul. He's a good soul. He's a kind soul. And Mylene just wants to be a star, but she's not willing to defame herself to find fame. So you've got these two innocent souls stuck in hell with a man wielding the devil's gun. It was legitimately the most blatant symbolism in storytelling I could find. Which, don't get me wrong, I still adored. And the whole scene from beginning to end played out beautifully. But I just really had to make that point. But what we see in that scene, first, we see that Shaolin Fantastic works for the Queen Pin herself. With a very awkward kiss there.
Yeah, that whole character is overly like, I'm the mother figure, but I'll also do you.
Yeah, it was a little uncomfortable. Not saying that I'm not slut shaming. I'm not.
Right.
I'm just saying I was uncomfortable. But again, you know what? That's not for me. That's it. I can be uncomfortable. I'm not going to judge someone else's life. For sure. But except for like the drugs and violence. But so you've got that going on upstairs. Meanwhile, downstairs, Les Inferno, the most popular disco club in the area. You can tell the place is hopping. Right. It is very seedy. It is very much that type of place that when the lights are turned on is probably not very impressive. But when the lights are out and they're flashing the strobes and they got the smoke going, I mean, it is exactly what I would picture a disco club to look like. You've got Mylene coming in with her friends, and she is dressed very scantily. I actually agree with her father that she should have put a little bit more on. Just a little. Yeah. And her friends do convince her to, start talking up Cadillac. And they're kind of putting her in a very awkward position with a man who is used to getting what he wants from whatever girl he wants, whenever he wants. So you've got that tension building. Meanwhile, outside, you've got the fight between Zeke and Shaolin over the record, which was not much of a fight. More of a verbal joust.
No, yeah, they're literally, it's a very, well, he confronts him in the street, and then they're like, hey, you need to take that around the corner. So they literally just look at each other, and they're like, yeah, I guess let's go around the corner then, because this scene in the street isn't done, and yet we're being yelled at. So we'll just go around the corner and continue this fight, which continues to not be a fight.
Again, so I kind of thought they were saying, you got to take that shit around the corner. I thought they were more saying it as like, hey, Shaolin, you work for the Queen Pin. I have a feeling you're going to kill this kid. You don't do that in the streets. You go take that around the corner.
Yeah.
So I had a feeling those guys thought like, oh yeah, he is gonna murder this kid. We can't have that happen in front of the disco.
But that doesn't happen. Shaolin seems so completely like oblivious to actual crime or violence to me.
I think it's an end, means to an end for him.
Yeah.
And that end we get a little touch of at the end. That was not intentional.
Yeah, I wonder how it's going to play out though if he's gotten himself so in bed with this gang. I wonder how it's going to play out that he wants to then leave the gang, essentially. Like, hey, I'm done. I need to go pursue my music career. I don't know how involved in this gang he is, because they seem to be pretty intense with how they operate.
No, so, you don't say.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You want to walk us through the climax of the Les Inferno scene, the Les symbolism?
The less blatant with symbolism.
Less blatant with symbolism.
Well, let's quickly pan back to hell here.
Yep.
We go back to hell. The devil's gun himself is marching his happy ass back upstairs. But they're a bit interrupted by a group of interlopers, and that is the very same adjective noun that we referenced before. The savage warlords. They come in, they start shooting up the place. They almost kill our queen pin, right? Like she didn't take one, but it.
I wondered if they were implying that she died.
It didn't look like it. It looked like she was ducked behind a table.
Yeah.
She almost goes. Of course, at that point, Cadillac had not made it back upstairs, and they're looking for Cadillac. But this is obviously an orchestrated hit. Yeah. All hell breaks loose in the club. Zeke, being the innocent hero that he is, gets Mylene and her friends out of the club, ducking that gunfire with Shaolin Fantastic.
Yep.
But altogether, shocking no one, carnage breaks out in hell.
It absolutely does. And this, I think, is our most intense climax of this episode. It's hard to say where exactly, this 90 minutes doesn't follow a hero's journey structure. The show might. This 90 minutes is scene after scene after scene after scene introducing the characters. And maybe there are elements to Zeke being our hero and going through the trials and tribulations and entering the cave and the mentor and all that sort of stuff of the monument, the hero's journey, right?
Yeah.
But for the most part, we're just scene after scene after scene, and there's an epic scene here and an epic scene there. And this is I think our most tense climax. If I had to pick a climax of the episode.
You think so?
Where do you think the climax would be?
I think the climax was the get down, him finding his voice. I mean conflict.
Because the get down scene doesn't really present a whole lot of conflict.
I don't know. He was getting his ass served by that crowd.
For half a second.
Sure, but that could have torn him apart. This is a man who prides himself on his words and his poetry.
All right. Well, let's move there.
He stood up in front of a crowd and failed.
Let's get there, Lynn. Let's talk about that because Zeke's relationship with Mylene there in the club, he presents the record to her that he got for her, specifically for her. She does not accept it. They have a confrontation, and I think that's Zeke's low point in the episode. It's where he begins to bounce. That's his rock bottom. Yeah. She really says, this isn't happening, Zeke.
You're not my boyfriend.
Yeah. And she doesn't want that. She has bigger, better dreams, and in a sense, he's not enough for her. And so it breaks him. It breaks him in that moment, and so he goes off and finds his guys, and tries to make something of himself.
I mean, but you got to remember, she blatantly said the words, "I don't love you," after he just bared his heart to her.
Yep.
I mean, I think we've all been there, right?
What better heartbreak moment of a love story than the words, "I don't love you"?
It's actually really cheap at this point.
Might be a little on the nose.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know if people really talk like that.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Maybe we're just privileged.
I've never said that to anybody, and I'm a heartbreaker.
I don't know about that.
Okay, all right. Well, fair enough.
If you guys haven't seen what Nathan looks like, just Google lemon party. You'll get it.
So at that point, Zeke meets back up with his friend. Shaolin comes and confronts him, and his friends are awed to see Shaolin Fantastic. Shaolin does this cool thing where he slides down a rock and does graffiti as he slides down the rock.
That was literally one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
It was kind of cool. I kind of want to try it.
No, you don't.
I do. Take a can of spray paint, slide down a rock, and just write my name essentially as I fall down the rock and make it look really cool.
It's not going to be your name. It's going to it'll be an N and then just
a line as it goes down, and then I lose grip of the can and it just falls down the hill.
And you break a leg. It's going to be great. You know what? I support this the more we talk about it.
Let's do it. We'll film it and then we'll air the audio on podcast.
It's going to be really good.
And this is where Shaolin tells him what he wants the record for. Essentially, he needs it for the get down.
What's the get down?
You don't know what the get down is? And then he invites them to, what is it called? The
hottest underground party. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I've heard enough hype men in my life call their club something like it.
The hottest underground party. He invites them out to a party, and they show up. And none other than one of our only characters based on a real person, as far as I know, who we already introduced, DJ Grandmaster Flash, who, by the way, is a producer on the show as well, and has been musically basically in charge of the show quite a bit. There he is, ripping it up, DJing there on his 2 turntables. Shaolin gives him the record, the Bakusa, right? Grandmaster Flash freaks out. He got the Bakusa, and this is where Shaolin describes what, essentially what Grandmaster Flash is doing to Zeke. He describes the get down.
Yeah.
And so, and just for clarity on this, the get down is the part of a disco song or of a pop song where it breaks from what they consider to be the bullshit part of the music, which is the violins, the strings, and the singing. They don't care about, not in this scene. What they care about is the drum break. And the drum break might last 10 seconds, right? But this is where a skilled DJ is able to take 10 seconds of drums and turn it into 10 minutes of a beat for an MC or a hip-hop artist to rap over. And this is something that in real life, Grandmaster Flash pioneered. This was him. This whole idea that you see a DJ with their hands on a turntable going wicka wicka wicka, that's not what that's for. The reason you would put your hands on a turntable is to cue up one while the other plays, and then to do that back and forth over and over again. So I've got my 10 seconds of drum on the left, it's playing. While I take the right one, I move it back to the beginning of the get down, and right when it's supposed to go, I flip the switch, the other one starts playing, and I start doing the same on the left. You do that for 10 minutes straight, and you got yourself a get down. And so that's what the whole show is sort of named after.
Man, if only we could have given them even iPod classics where you could just repeat from point A to point B.
I have the DJ app on my phone.
Yeah?
Yeah.
By what, algorithm?
Yeah, the algorithm DJ app. I can do it.
Yeah, I've actually played with that app. I have no idea what I'm doing because I think I'm more of a wordsmith.
Yeah. Oh, good. Oh, yeah. So, and yeah, your wordsmith is your MC, your rapper, your hip hop artist, your person who's actually going to get the crowd going while you do your get down. So, Dan, you be my wordsmith. I'm going to find some Misty Holloway tracks and play them on my algorithm DJ.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be able to do that.
Yeah, just search her on iTunes. You'll find
I'll find it, and we'll do it. I promise.
She real people.
And so this is I think what you're referring to as our climax, because this is where Zeke tries to get up. He's challenged essentially to be a wordsmith there in this moment. He tries and fails, predictably, I might add.
Of course, he was pushed into it. He was not prepared. He's again fresh off a heartbreak.
Yeah.
Being told he's something he's not.
If I'm a writer though, and I'm going to push a character into the moment where they're going to become their own, I'm not going to allow them to be perfect right out the gate. They're going to fail once, right? And then they're going to get made fun of, and then they're going to come back and show themselves and prove who they are.
Yeah, way to be stereotypical, Nathan. In my stories, when I write, they fail.
People are perfect?
No, they fail.
Permanently.
Then they try again, they fail again, and they never actually quite master it, and they fall into a pit of depression and eventually commit suicide. That has been 10 out of 10 in my stories.
Perfect. So
that does not happen.
You're Paul Thomas Anderson.
Solid.
I want to see his show.
You sure?
Yeah. But Zeke does not fail. He fails once. He comes back. He tries again, and he crushes it. And he proves himself as a wordsmith.
Dominates that crowd.
Yep. Grandmaster Flash sees it. Shaolin goes, "Oh my God, this guy's amazing." He's fresh off a heartbreak, like you said. He's going to be my wordsmith. He's got nothing left to lose, and so that's really where the get down comes from. And this is what inspires Zeke. And we essentially take 90 minutes to get to this moment where Zeke comes into his own, figures out this is what he wants to do. He wants to be an MC. He wants to start, essentially what will become the hip hop scene. He wants to be a part of it. And so Shaolin takes what they can refer to as the Fantastic Four plus one.
Yeah, which they got to work on that name.
Well, that's a reference to.
No, I don't actually.
So that is a reference to. Forgive me if I'm wrong, and I'll even look it up just to make sure. But DJ Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five.
Okay.
So yeah, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, which is Grandmaster Flash's group's name, and many of their stupid names kind of are reminiscent of here. I've got it right here. So you got Grandmaster Flash and the hold on, I'm sorry. It's taken me forever to get here.
The Sinister Six.
In the Furious Five. Yeah, no. Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. And you've got Grandmaster Flash himself. You've got Keef Cowboy. You've got Mel. You've got the Kid Creole. You've got Mr. Ness or Scorpio. And you've got Raheem. So those are the
players.
The big players in an actual group. An actual hip-hop group, and this is sort of that reference to that. These are all fictional people, but the Fantastic Four plus one is sort of that tongue-in-cheek reference to
Furious Five.
Yeah, the Furious Five. So
Which, by the way, Fast and the Furious really missed the reference point. The fifth movie should have been called Furious 5.
Yeah, why didn't they do that?
Right.
And then literally have I was going to say Shaolin. Have
Shaolin Fantastic. Yeah. Show up.
Have them do the record. Have them do the soundtrack. And so, yeah, this is where we kind of end. We move up to a rooftop. You've got, Fantastic, Shaolin Fantastic, showing them the essentially the Lion King, everything the light touches is our kingdom moment where he lays up.
Are you sure? Or does he point to every different bird and go, all right, that's where Herc is. That's what, like, I
got the Lion King. He said everything the light touches is our kingdom.
I mean, I guess you're right, though. Like it was very much a Lion King moment.
But they say they want to make their own kingdom. Essentially, there's all these different hip-hop turfs, and they're going to make their own. And they watch as a train goes by, and like you said, a beautiful shot, very stylized. The train is all lit up for no reason. But, that doesn't make any physical sense. But Baz Luhrmann style, train goes by. It's got a big graffiti painting that Jaden Smith's character had done. And we move out of there. And we move into, jump right back to 1996. You've got Zeke. He's performing on stage. Again, doing a song that has the Misty Holloway song from the beginning as backing vocals. And that's how we wrap up. That's how we tell the story of these characters over 90 minutes.
It took a while to get there, but again, it was quite a ride.
Yeah, and it leaves you wanting to know how these people take on the mantle of hip-hop artists, and it remains to be seen, the relationship. I think, again, people want this to be about the birth of hip-hop, and I think more it leaves you wondering, how are Zeke and Mylene going to come out? How is Mylene's father going to react to the fact that she has been out all night? And by the way, we forgot that part. Well, because he does react, and she's told to go to her uncle, Francisco.
Yeah, her father beats on her pretty savagely.
Mm-hmm. So how is that going to play out? And, all these sort of different character moments that are left hanging. Is Mylene going to wind up with this record deal? Is all of these different things, going to wind up playing out? That's what it leaves you with. And it certainly left me interested in continuing on. I thought it was a cool representation of a time in history that the 70s is overly talked about, but the emergence of hip hop in the Bronx, the financial turmoil that New York was in at the time, and how that inspired hip-hop to become a genre of music. That story hasn't been told a whole lot.
Yeah, and I mean, even still, we may not really get that full story, but we're getting an introduction to a world set in that story. So we're catching a glimpse of a period of time that otherwise it goes pretty well ignored.
Yeah.
So it's definitely good. Before we finish up our thoughts, we're going to take a quick break, just give you a quick commercial for our sponsor. But when we come back, we're going to go through our final thoughts, and we'll ask the key question yet again: was this episode worth $9 million? So we'll be right back. Hey, little buddies, this episode of BoobTube Buddies is brought to you by Audible.com. Go to audibletrials.com/BoobTubeBuddies, and you can get yourself one free book. Actually, quick moment, wanted to talk about it. Hey, kids, welcome back to school. Summer's over, the fun's gone, and you're going to be reading a lot of books. You know what one of those books might be? The Good Earth by Pearl S. Buck. It's only about 374 pages, but who has the time? Am I right? Plus, it's not that interesting a book. Sure, it's a literary classic. Sure, everyone says there's something great about it, but there's only so much you can read about binding Chinese women's feet. Anyway, check out The Good Earth by Pearl S. Buck on Audible.com, narrated by Anthony Held, and go to audibletrials.com/BoobTubeBuddies. I think you'll enjoy it. I mean, as much as you can enjoy The Good Earth. All right, welcome back. We're going to go ahead and continue our discussion, have our final thoughts about the episode. So first, I'm going to turn it over to Nathan. Nathan, overall, you just spent an hour and a half investing in this story, and we've already gone over the main plot points. We've already gone over how we felt in general. Yeah. But ultimately, if you had to summarize how you feel now that you've finished this first episode, I mean, where are you? Like, where's your head at?
Fantastic.
Shaolin fantastic.
Shaolin fantastic. No, my head is at, this is a cool way of telling a story that could have been told many, many, many different ways. And I don't think this story is revolutionary. I think it's a love story for the most part. It's a story of someone finding a talent they didn't know they had. It's all of these sort of tropes of storytelling with a Baz Luhrmann flair to it that I love. I like the stylization. I like the reverence it has of this time period. I like the soundtrack, I should say, because this soundtrack actually comes from Grandmaster Flash, his crates of records he has that basically Baz looked at him and said, dude, what was great back then? What were you playing? What were you rolling back then? And
by the way, all of that, like all of it, is available on Apple Music. Like I've been listening to it. It's
great.
Like, it's phenomenal.
Yeah. And so, and it felt like, and I guess we haven't even addressed the fact that this is technically a musical show, but not in the sense that you think of a musical, like where they break out into song and, say what they think, but through lyrics. They're singing either music, right? Like a source song, like Mylene does in the beginning, or what they're doing is backed up by music constantly. There's almost no second of the show that doesn't have some form of hip-hop song or disco song underlying it. It's not a traditional score. These are actual songs from the time period, from Grandmaster Flash's crates of records that cost them a lot of money.
A lot of money. And also, by the way, I know you said not in the traditional sense, but again, the episode opens and ends with Zeke rapping about his life. No, that is the musical in the sense that he has stopped to sing about his life.
That's true. There are these moments where Zeke is saying something and you cut back to Mylene, and you cut back to Zeke, and you cut back to Mylene, and I can just imagine those two groups of characters on opposite ends of a stage, talking to their groups of friends, kind of Grease, right?
West Side Story.
West Side Story, exactly. And even though they're not singing about what they're thinking, they're saying it through very carefully crafted dialogue, and it felt like a musical in those moments. And I appreciated that. I thought it was cool, a very unique way of telling a pretty predictable and yet still compelling story.
Yeah, and actually, to your point on the music as well, like it's in the background, it's everywhere. Realistically, I can't think of a moment where it wasn't there. No. When I look back on the episode, even the moments, so like there were moments where there was not a song, but there was a rhythm.
Right.
There was always a rhythm.
A get down, if you will.
A get down, perhaps. But even that one dinner scene where it's more conversation, then all of a sudden, Boo, Rara, and oh no, what was Jaden? You know what? Let's just call him Jaden. And Jaden's father came in with the saxophone.
Yeah.
There's always music through the whole episode, and that's that Baz Luhrmann that I personally do appreciate. Is he has such an irreverent style of weaving music in with the visual elements that you're seeing, and in this case, it's pretty toned down for Baz's style. Like it's not this over the top, dramatic, bright colors everywhere. It's none of that. It's not Gatsby, but at the same time, it's not a far leap from that. Mm-hmm. So I am very excited to continue on. I'm very excited to keep this conversation going, because I still haven't closed the door on the fact that it might let me down.
It might, but after 90 minutes, I'm happy, so happy to say that I'm hopeful.
Yeah, I'm
more
very
than hopeful. I'm excited. $9 million?
$9 million. Okay. Again, I think I said it earlier. It feels like maybe $4 million of that was squandered.
Yeah.
But then again, considering the production hell it went through, I am going to officially, from myself, give it the stamp of this episode for all 90 minutes of what they gave us was worth $9 million.
Yep. I was going to give it a yes on this, especially due to length. I was going to say yes to $9 million on this.
On this one. I will.
But there are going to be some no's in this show, because the $9 million is going to be hidden by production things that could have been avoided.
Yeah, like there's going to be an episode where they're just sitting in a soundstage chatting, and I know it. We're going to get there.
$9 million
and I'm gonna be like,
salary.
That's not New York at all anymore. I'm pretty sure that's the Sesame Street set.
Yeah. They saved money on that. People are donating.
Big Bird is in the background.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us on our review of, I'm going to say, Season 1, Part 1, Episode 1 of The Get Down, the Netflix original, The Get Down. We're excited to continue this conversation. As we dive further into this as the show goes on, we're going to dive a little bit further into character, a little less plot. So follow along the show with us, watch it, and then join us afterwards and listen to what we think about The Get Down.
And guys, please remember, subscribe on iTunes, give us a like, give us a comment. If you like what me and Nathan do, check out our BoJack Horseman podcast as well. And of course, keep checking in on Mathis and Adam. We don't want them to be lonely either. Have a good night, everybody.
Have a good night, guys.